Looking for a guaranteed way to create content that resonates with your audience? Start a podcast. Interview your ideal clients and let them choose the topic of the interview. Because if your ideal clients care about the topic, there's a good chance the rest of your audience will care about it too. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to B2B Growth, a daily podcast for B2B leaders. We've interviewed names you've probably heard before, like Gary Vaynerchuk and Simon Sinek, but you've probably never heard from the majority of our guests. That's because the bulk of our interviews aren't with professional speakers and authors. Most of our guests are in the trenches leading sales and marketing teams. They're implementing strategy. They're experimenting with tactics. They're building the fastest growing B2B companies in the world. My name is James Carberry. I'm the founder of Sweetfish Media, a podcast agency for B2B brands, and I'm also one of the co-hosts of this show. When we're not interviewing sales and marketing leaders, you'll hear stories from behind the scenes of our own business. We'll share the ups and downs of our journey as we attempt to take over the world. Just kidding. Well, maybe. Let's get into the show.
Welcome back to B2B Growth. I'm your host for today's episode, Logan Lyles with Sweetfish Media. I'm joined today by Rachel Wexler. She is the Director of Marketing over at TribalScale. Rachel, how are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Time we're recording, it's almost 70 degrees in Colorado. In the springtime, that won't last, but for now, I'm doing great.
Great. I'm just praying for some sun at this point.
I hear you, definitely. Well, Rachel, we are going to be talking about how to evolve your marketing team at some pivotal points of growth, especially going through high growth phases early on in the business. And I think I'm going to get value out of this. I know a lot of listeners are going to be tuned in with open ears. But before we jump straight into that, I would love for you to share a little bit of your marketing background and what you and the team at TribalScale are up to these days for a little context.
Yeah, definitely. So my background is kind of varied. It comes from all over the place, but for me, it makes complete linear sense. I started in design. So I started in photojournalism, graphic design, and then I moved into advertising, creative direction, experiential marketing, e-commerce marketing. And then when I found TribalScale, it seemed like the best blend of all of those things, leading designers and writers and doing events, some experiential marketing thing. And really all that meant to me is building relationships, and my biggest passion of making sure that we were building relationships and building meaningful product. So that's a little bit about me. And TribalScale is an innovation firm. We help enterprises build best-in-class digital product, and we help transform their teams. So through that, obviously, relationship building is really important. And I think that's what we'll probably talk about today is how do you build those relationships and continue to nurture and grow them in the different stages of growth.
I know at several points you're going to be talking about, the value of your network, especially as you build a team from the ground up. So let's just jump right in there, Rachel. I love your career story, by the way. I've got one of those as well that is a winding path, but makes sense to me. I love the way that you put that. But let's jump into, kind of your growth story at TribalScale and unpack some of the lessons that you guys learned along the way. Let's start from, where you guys were from 0 to 8 million in revenue. That was kind of the first section I know you wanted to break down for listeners, right?
Yeah. So we, for a bit of context, we have been around. So we're headquartered in Toronto, and we've been around for 3 years, just over 3 years. So when we talk about the 3 stages, it's really easy to follow because it's pretty much year 1, year 2, year 3, which is great. In that time, obviously, we experienced a lot of growth because we did go from 0 to 8 within our first year of business. So the way we started was with a bunch of co-founders. We had 5 co-founders who were coming from Extreme Labs that was acquired by Pivotal. And they, saw a gap in the market. They saw that, they think that we could have product market fit for a new type of service offering. And they opened their doors to TribalScale 3 years ago. And so I was brought in the second year. So I was brought in about a year and 7 months ago. So right in that middle point. When I started, we were at 50 employees. And right now we're sitting at over 200. So a lot of that growth was seen from year 2 and year 3. Mm-hmm. Year 1 was really about, building that relationship within our network. So what we did in that first year, and it bled into a little bit when I started. So the first year and a half was community building. So we built a community up within our Toronto community and within the other offices that we had around the world. At that point, we only had really a presence in Toronto, New York, and maybe a little bit of the Valley. So building that community, we wanted to make sure that we were filling the company with the right talent. So being a services company, it was really important that we were onboarding the right employees, especially because there were weeks where we were onboarding 10 people at a time. So the right talent, the right skill sets, the right backgrounds, making sure that we were having, diverse, not just employees, but varied backgrounds that were going to help us build products globally. Mm-hmm. And then really that nurturing the relationships that we did have from what our co-founders were already bringing into from their previous life.
Mm-hmm. And that's right. You guys have 5 co-founders at the company, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And so as we were talking offline, you mentioned some of the things that you were doing to extend and deepen the relationships within their networks that you just alluded to there, doing some breakfasts, some speaking engagements. Tell us a little bit about the strategy there and some of the things that companies that are maybe in that same similar early stage growth might want to be thinking about in leveraging their founders or other leadership team members' networks as they grow in the very early days.
Yeah, so I'll definitely unpack the specific tactics, but overall, the real importance of all of that was just to ensure that you're going out there. You have presence. You're showing up, you're attending events. That's really the thread that brings all these tactics together. So some of those were hosting our own founders breakfasts. So even though we worked in the enterprise space, making sure that we were creating a community of innovators so that we would understand, the different topics and disruptors and insights from lots of different backgrounds and perspectives. So we had this founders breakfast series where founders from, it could be enterprise, it could be startups, but founders and leaders coming together and having breakfast monthly. So that was a big thing for us right in the beginning. Speaking engagements were also really important. So we have a series called Tech TO here in Toronto, and it's every month, and they have a large community, and you can apply to be a speaker and be on stage. You can just go and network, have a booth set up. So we went every single month, and we would set up our booth. We would have some sort of fun marketing gimmick, whether it was a giveaway or some kind of networking workshop or activity that we would do at our little station. And really, I would look to my left and look to my right, and I would always be in shock of who we were stacked up against. Big banks, insurance companies, media companies, and then there was little old us. So that really helped us, get them in line with some of our bigger competitors. We also just networked a ton. We went to every event. We had my marketing team, which was just myself and one other person at that point. We had alerts, Google alerts set up for all events that were going on in Toronto. We had an events board that we put at the front of our office. We encouraged, so we have a professional development budget where we will buy any event ticket for any employee at any time. So we would encourage all of our employees to go to all the different events in Toronto. And we started saying, we're kind of taking over all these events within our space. And what's really interesting about that is as we grew from 0 to 8, that's what we were focused on in Toronto, but we've actually mimicked this model in our other offices. So for example, we opened up an office in Dubai. We had, 2 people in that office, and now we have about 15 people in that office. And we are starting to do the exact same things as far as community building in Dubai as we did in Toronto at the very beginning. So why that's significant is it doesn't matter if, your revenue or the numbers that you hit, the targets that you hit are at a certain point. If you're starting up in new areas around the world, you have to mimic those beginning relationship builders, or it's going to be really hard to thrive in a new market.
That is such good advice. I think a lot of people can get caught up in this. Okay, we're at this stage of revenue growth. We don't need to, start over from scratch. We've kind of already been there, done that. But if your focus is on relationships and the importance of community, that is going to differ from region to region and almost reset to a certain degree. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be some awareness there and things like that. But I love that. I love that you're advocating for, as well as just how you guys took over events almost without permission, just, hey, we belong here, and inserted yourself. I think that strategy has obviously yielded dividends for you guys as well.
Yeah,
so
and
let's
I think
move.
even just to finish, one of the things I think you'll enjoy is my CEO one of the things we did as far as, we bought the tickets to the different events, but we also had every batch of co-ops. So we always had co-op cohorts every couple months. So we would have a quarterly TribalScale t-shirt, and we would crowdsource the design of it. Before we had a design team, before we had a marketing team. Now we have both of those things.
Right.
But we would give out a t-shirt to all of our employees every quarter, and we would always put our TribalScale logo on the back of the neck. And the idea there was that at any event, the only stipulation is you have to wear our t-shirt if TribalScale is paying for your ticket. And then when all of our co-op students went back to school, you could just see at the top of the lecture hall all the TribalScale logos looking down.
I love that. That is, oh man, that is fantastic. Talk about, some great placement for sure. Absolutely. So stage 2 was really year 2 for you guys. As you mentioned, you joined the team at that point, and going really from 8 to about 16 million in revenue that year, you started to focus more on overall awareness and thought leadership. How did the strategies change, and how did they stay the same in this second stage of growth for you guys, Rachel?
Yeah, I think our ultimate goal was still in building these relationships. It was just where were we building them and who were we building them with that got a little bit more strategic in this phase. So what we started to do is we did some of the same tactics. So still events, still speaking engagements, but rather than a speaking engagement full of a room of, startups and entrepreneurs, we tried getting speaking engagements with, enterprises and potential clients. So we just shifted our priorities. So we probably started to do more quality as far as what was going to help drive our business development and less quantity. So whereas that first year, the 0 to 8 was really focused on just be wherever and just bring the TribalScale name wherever you can. The second year was focused on where should we be and where should we be focusing our time, because obviously we got even busier and got more clients and more work. So we needed to be a little bit more strategic. So what we did in that case was, in that year, we were really able to hit that 16 mark by going global. So like I mentioned, what we did in Toronto that first year, we started doing in our global offices. So we opened up in our second year, our California office. We got another person in New York. We opened up our Dubai office. So we really started to mimic those first types of tactics and initiatives in our first year there. And then in Toronto, we matured what we were doing. So some of the things that we did, we introduced our own conference series. So we planned, and that was really a couple months after I had started. My crazy CEO, in the best sense of the word, said, I want you to plan a conference in 6 weeks, and I want to bring our global network to Toronto. We've made this amazing community in Toronto. We have this great community of clients that are around the world, and I want to bring these two groups together. And if we're seen as somebody who's bringing these two groups together, we'll naturally be thought leaders without having to do any sales pitches.
Yeah, absolutely. There is so much value. There's often untapped value by a lot of teams and a lot of brands by positioning yourself as the connector, as the community builder. And we think about building our community of making the right connections for us. And oftentimes we don't look at it the way that you're talking about here, Rachel. And how can we connect the people in our network to people that they should know? Because if they both get value out of those relationships, then that value comes back to you, right?
Exactly. And so, I think you alluded to at the beginning, but the TribalScale motto is that your network is your net worth. And we really wanted to make sure that we were those connectors. And so we wanted to connect our clients, across financial services to media, to automotive. You should meet each other. You should connect. You live in Dubai, you live in Toronto, you live in LA, you should know each other. And one of the, where I knew that this was successful is I was in an interview, interviewing one of our past speakers at our takeover conference, and interviewing her in kind of a focus group format for our next takeover, which is happening in October. And I asked her, what do you think of when you think of our TribalScale, takeover conference series? And she said, a room full of really cool people. And so that to me was a big check, because that's ultimately our objective. If we can be seen somewhere that you actually want to be, not because you have to be there, your company has sent you there, or you're speaking and you're treating it like a job obligation, but you actually want to be in that room and be meeting people, you're building meaningful relationships that are ultimately going to help drive your business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Couldn't agree more. We're so aligned on that value of relationships, Rachel, between your team and ours. So I just love to hear other people talking about it. I'm just behind the mic, just smiling at everything that you're saying. So let's move on though to the third stage of growth from 16 to 32 million. You guys are now reaching for 100 million as that next benchmark that you have in your sights set on. Tell us a little bit about where you have grown here and some of the things. I know as you and I were talking offline, you mentioned you're just now starting to implement some of the real tactical digital marketing roles and strategies there that a lot of people think, hey, we gotta do this stuff from day one, when it sounds like your approach was to do more organic community building, relationship building, and then once you have more of the infrastructure, to start to do more of the tactical marketing things, develop a growth team, those sorts of things. Tell us about this stage.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what happened in this stage is we went from about, 50 employees to 200 plus. So obviously a lot of growth. So the first answer of that is there was a big focus on building your team in order to support the actual business and what was driving the business, which was building products, bringing us to market. So the first really big part of that was, okay, what does our team need to look like? What types of engineers do we need? What types of product managers do we need? How can we professionally develop our team? Do we need, more mature types of skill sets and people to come on board? So that was a huge part of it. So even me, particularly within my marketing team, within that third year, I grew my team from 2 people, maybe 3 people up to 6. So doubled the team. And really now we're focused on, dividing between growth and nurture. So yes, we're implementing all those things, and I can actually do the marketing job that I've been wanting to do for 3 years. We've been going 3 conferences, 2 in Toronto and 1 in Dubai. So that took up a lot of time in 1 year. But we were really focusing now on making sure that we're nurturing the relationships that we do have. So on that common theme of relationship building and engaging with our past and current clients as much as possible and building those meaningful relationships. I just got back from South by Southwest in Austin a couple days ago, and we made sure to connect with all of our past, whether they're current clients or not, past clients, current clients. We brought them together. So instead of doing it, maybe in a breakfast series or a large conference, it was that medium ground of a dinner where we've carefully curated the group and we are sitting next to people we know we want to connect. And we're thinking, you're working in the automotive space, but you're working in the media space and you want media and cars to be automated, maybe with some voice technology. So let's get a partner in the mix. And so now you're not just organically building relationships, but you're actually becoming the person who potentially could bridge the gap between people working together. And that's what really took us from that growth stage in actually closing and selling business and giving more logos to our group. The other thing was really now focusing on bridging the gap and helping the sales team in all of their efforts. So really looking to the market and working in an agile way. We work with agility within our delivery teams, but also within our sales and marketing teams to really respond to the market. So whereas before, we were focused on, what we thought the market needed, what we thought our market fit was. And in this third year, we've really honed in on exactly what our product market fit was. And we decided to shift focus more from, less from an emerging technology platform perspective and more into transformational business because we were responding to what our clients actually needed. So I think a shift in that third year is really important. Don't just do something because you've been doing it and it's working, but you have to, at some point, you're going to plateau if you don't start responding to the market because we're in tech and it's going to be changing constantly. New platforms, new technologies, new subjects, new whatever it is, it's going to be changing. So make sure that you're shifting in response to that. And a big part of that third year was going through a massive rebrand. So we rebranded not just aesthetically and from a branding perspective, but we rebranded what offerings we're providing. We introduced a Venture Studios program, which is where we co-create disruptive startups with our corporate partners. So we introduced new offerings. We maybe got rid of some offerings that we saw weren't picking up. And then we really focused on those.
Yeah. I think once you hit that stage, there can be a tendency to, we can do all these things, when actually it's a time to whittle down. It's a time to focus on really what you do well. And also, to your point, keeping your finger on the pulse of the market. Any services business, any tech company has got to be doing that at every stage. Otherwise, the market is going to shift. You're not going to realize, and pretty soon you're going to be off in the ditch when you thought you were on the highway going 60 miles an hour, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Well, Rachel, this has been fantastic. I love hearing your story. Obviously, you guys have had tremendous success, and there are a lot of lessons to learn from that. So I really appreciate you sharing those with listeners today. If anybody listening to this would like to take the conversation a little further, learn more about TribalScale, or just reach out to you and stay connected, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, so our TribalScale website is very simple. It's TribalScale.com. My personal email at the company is Rachel@TribalScale.com, so also very easy. And we're all on Twitter. So TribalScale on Twitter, you can get tons of updates for what our business is doing, all of our marketing initiatives. We aggregate it all into one place for all the cities that we work in and have events in, from multiple levels. So Twitter is always a great place.
I love it. Rachel, thank you so much for being on the show today. This was a great conversation.
Great. Thank you so much for having me.
We totally get it. We publish a ton of content on this podcast, and it can be a lot to keep up with. That's why we've started the B2B Growth Big Three, a no-fluff email that boils down our 3 biggest takeaways from an entire week of episodes. Sign up today at sweetfishmedia.com/big3. That's sweetfishmedia.com/big3.